Okay, well, thank you so much for being here with us, Representative Brewer.
Thank you.
To start off, I'd love to hear just a little bit about you, if you could share how you got into politics in the first place.
Well, I'll just start. I'm Darnell, State Rep for District 18. For those who know, District 18 represents the southeast side of Cleveland, wards 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 12, Garfield Heights and Maple. And in 2025, we're just adding Bedford and Bedford Heights, going more southeast to that list. I'm a parent of four. Prior to coming to the House, I worked in social service, so I worked with the elderly disabled individuals. Prior to that, I was in the school district. I worked as a parent liaison, truancy officer. My last stint within the Cleveland Municipal School District was an assistant to a principal at my Auburn Elementary School. So education, disability rights, elderly, aging in place is something that I've always been interested in. But you asked how I got in politics, and we talked about this previously. I was 17 when I ran for office. I ran for Cleveland School Board. I am on record as being one of the youngest people to ever run for political office in the state of Ohio. Uh, I was challenged by the Board of Elections because at the time the qualification for school board was 18. I was a registered voter, so I could take out petitions to run. Lou Stokes, former Lou Stokes, argued my case and told them that the law says uh, you have to be 18 to serve on the school board, 17 to take out petitions and gather petitions. My birthday is in October, so if I had won the election, I would have been 18 to assume the seat. Unfortunately, due to time limits, things of that nature, I could not run on the ballot physically. They ran out the clock on me, so I was able to run as a write-in. But technically, I am one of the youngest persons to ever run for political office. Other than that, I ran for Ward 6 for City Council. Unfortunately, I did not make that hall, but here I am in the State House as District 18 State Representative.
So, while in office, what issues have you been focusing on?
We've been focused on quality of life issues in our office, whether it be driver's license suspension, what we're talking about, not just from the point of an individual who represents and lives in District 18, but immigrants as well, or those who come here illegally and need to get their driver's license as well. We worked on bills when it comes to youth violence. We have House Bill 420 and 421. One actually for the governor to name a gun violence task force, which he did when he was lieutenant governor, and also to name gun violence as a public health issue. In addition to that, providing money for trauma resources for individuals, and two, for also agencies and organizations that are actually doing boots on the ground work. That's actually in the bill, boots on the ground work to combat gun violence. We've had some self-direct bills when it comes to working with individuals with Medicaid and Medicare. So we've been working on quality of life issues. I always tell people I can count. I'm 32 out of 99 in the House, so it's hard for me to pass some of these bills. One of my successful bills has been my gun bill, which is to provide a sales tax exemption on gun safety devices. It's a bipartisan bill supported by NRA, Moms Demand Action, Student Demand Action, Sandy Hook, all of them. So this is a very bipartisan bill, but unfortunately, we just can't get across that hump. But what it would do, hopefully, would save lives when it comes to gun safety. So we're working on a lot of issues when it comes to quality of life issues for residents, not only in our district, but around the state of Ohio.
So, when you talk about being unable to get over that hump so far, like what are some examples of those challenges that you've faced so far?
I think some of the challenges that we face is I represent one of the most impoverished uh, racially areas in the whole state of Ohio. And so when you think about it, we have to make sure the issue that I'm talking about relates to somewhere in the rural area. Ohio is a very rural state. And so in doing that, we have to show how can our bill not only help us in District 18, but help those in the rural area. Perfect example. I have a bill now that will, two bills as a matter of fact, one that will give free lunch and breakfast to all students in Ohio. And the second bill is that to also help with lunch debt when it comes to students in Ohio, which is called the anti-bullying bill for lunching. It doesn't, those two bills would not help my district. My district, I say, is impoverished, so they all receive free lunch. They all don't have lunch debt, just a few. But those two bills will help all of Ohio. So once again, how can I make sure those two bills represent all of Ohio? And I'm representing District 18. But that hump is there are very radical people down there in the state. There's some who agree with me in the state. There's some who don't. One thing I pride myself on is being very bipartisan, making sure I'm one of those people who do not go down there with like a bull in a china shop and just break down everything. My goal is to make sure the bills I pass and make sure the bills I put forward are the ones that represent all of Ohio.
Yeah. So how do you ensure that the bills that you're wanting to pass are like appeal to rural Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you get that point across and, to convince those folks?
One thing I always tell my individuals and people of interest that I work with when they come down to the house is tell your story. The heart is a very powerful thing. And when you tell your story to these representatives who do not live in your district or who do live in your district and how it impacts you and how it impacts them, I always tell people, tell your story. When you come to me, tell your story. When you come to my committee, when you come to any committee, tell your story. So that's how we do. I will say this: I am probably one of the few who do call my colleagues on the other side. They call me, we talk to each other. They know that even if we're a committee, we may fight like cats and dogs, but once it's over, the lights are out, the doors are closed, and we go into our spaces, we're still friends because they know that I have my values, they have my values. One thing won't change is my values. Even though I argue with you, even though I shake your hand and be very flexible with you, my values won't change. And that is making sure the quality of life issues that are happening in District 18 are taken care of.
Yeah, so speaking about these issues, I know you've done a lot of work on suspended licenses,
Mm-hmm.
driver's licenses. So, what has inspired you to push this type of policy?
Well, it kind of happened. I was running for office, and I remember going to a neighborhood connections event. And one of the, if you know what neighborhood connection event, they do breakout groups. And so one of the breakout group was facilitated by Joy Carter from Neighborhood Connections. And she talked about driver's license issue. And it's just like, wow. And so I wrote it down in my book as something that I would focus on. And as I started to focus on it, I learned more about it, especially when it comes to District 18, the district I represent. When you talk about the most of anything, most death, most violence, most driver's license suspension, you're talking about District 18. And so as I looked at that issue, I'm like, wow. And then I connected with neighbor connections, connected with Towards Employment, connected with the Marshall Project, Channel 5, and they all came on board. And we started looking at the issue. Justin Castro out in Garfield Heights, we looked at the issue like, wow, what can we do to help at least make a little dent in this? And we learned about so many things that happen. One of the bills I have introduced in the House, which has made it out the House successfully, is House Bill 29, which deals with driver's license suspensions and child support. And as I went through the committee, as we pushed it through the committee, we talked about driver's license suspension. We learned not only was it just a quality life issue, but a public safety issue. And that response came from someone who was across the aisle, who doesn't represent the same party I represent. And so that's how it came about, just looking at House Bill 29, working with these organizations, finding out, and just hearing personal stories from individuals, not only from my district, but across the state of Ohio as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for your work with
Thank
House
you.
Bill 29, especially.
Thank you.
What other? I know that you've helped organize a lot of events, like a recent town hall.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you could discuss a little bit about, why you decided to kind of organize such a community event,
Mm-hmm.
and the impact that that had.
Oh, I hopefully it had a huge impact. As I talked about the organizations that work for me on this, we all saw a need. And so, how do we address that need? And that townhouse forum was part of a series I did, was bringing Columbus to District 18, because 2 hours away is Columbus, where we make a lot of decisions. And people think we live in there's a gold palace out there, they don't have access to it. So how do we bring those individuals here to District 18? We brought in BMV Charlie Norman, who is a registered for the state of Ohio, to talk about what does the BMV. Because as you look at this issue, a lot of people blame the VMB for doing their job. They're actually just doing their job. But people need to know when they have driver's license suspension, what court, what system. Once you're trapped in, how do you get out? And so we decided to do a forum where we can help individuals learn how to get out of that system, how to find who holds your driver's license hostage in what city, what mayor's court, how do you do it? How does the BMV play a role in this? They're not the ones who are suspending your driver's license. They're just doing their job. So that was part of bringing the forum together so people can understand how does the courts work, how does the BMV work. There are like 13 different courts, that include about 9 different mayor's courts that people may have their driver's license suspensions in. So how do we navigate that system? So that's what we came about with the town hall forum.
Yeah, so discussing the issue itself, I know you've heard from a lot of people with firsthand experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a specific story that has really touched your heart, that has inspired you to continue propelling this issue? And yeah, if so, like what factors
Yeah,
impacted that
yeah.
individual?
I can't say it's one specific story. I mean, I have talked to literally individuals, conversations,
Yeah,
just going out talking, And someone would say, well, my driver's license. I'm like, wow. I mean, as I'm listening to these stories from individuals, it's more impactful than we probably would know. So I can't put one individual story or another, but I have stories about people who have judgment suspensions or financial suspensions who are at the mercies of a lawyer. They have paid their dues because they have a financial suspension, but they can't find any remedy to get driving privileges. Think about this. A person who has a DUI, driving under the influence, can go to a judge and say, hey, give me limited driving privileges to go to work, doctor's appointment, school, whatever have you. And the judge can grant it. Someone who has a financial or judgment suspension cannot do that. They can't go to a judge and say, hey, I've been paying on my financial suspension for the last 5 years on time. Can I have driving privileges? That's not done in the state of Ohio. So how do we remedy that? And so that was part of why we had the town hall forum. That is partly why I do it. And those are the stories I hear on a daily basis.
Yeah, so um, I'm wondering, like, why is this issue, like, why, in your opinion, what work needs to get done to really eliminate this issue? Because, I mean, I view it as criminalizing poverty is the reality. So, what needs to get done? Like, why is this issue? Because it impacts millions of Ohioans. So,
What can really help get this issue forward, and who could be moved out the way? Lobbyists. Just plain and simple lobbyists. Think about SB 37, which we're probably going to talk about.
mm-hmm.
SB 37 is one of those bills that is very bipartisan, introduced by Senator Blessing and another Senator Hicks in the House. And so they've had some components in there that deal with judgment suspensions and financial suspensions, but the lobbyists took it out. I tried to meet with one of the largest insurers in Ohio, based right here in the Cleveland area, and they refused to meet with me about the issue. But there are other insurance companies who have. So once we move all those out of the way, and think about the courts who make money off this, think about the insurance agents who make money off this. So it's a money making issue. Like I said, we're criminalizing poverty. We're just putting people further and further in the hole. But they don't see this. If they were to take this issue and put it into a way where people can pay their fines, think about the money they'll get on the front end. The lobbyists are one of the people that actually move out the way.
Yeah. So I hear that there's kind of another event in the works potentially.
Yes.
So would you like to share a little bit about your plans
You
or how it's going to differ?
Yeah,
from
one of the things
past?
that we learned at the town hall is, again, is how do people find out what court system they are in.
Yeah.
And so we also learned there are court systems in Garfield, who has like a walk-in Wednesday. Cleveland has something on Friday. There's probably other ones that have something right there. So we're trying to find a way to have one day right before the holidays where people can go into their respective courts and take care of their driver's license issue. But how do they find out what court to walk into? That's been an issue. So how do we find a way where we can find where people can come to us? We have someone for the BMV. We may have some legal representation there to find out what court system holds their driver's license hostage, and hopefully, we can either one have a day where they can walk into that court system, get it taken care of, or two, have them take care of it that day. Franklin County, which is almost as big, not big as, but almost as big as Cuyahoga County. They had an event where they helped over 500 individuals with their driver's license. I'm not sure if it was just getting rid of it or getting rid of fines or what have you, but we want to succeed that number because we know in Cleveland, probably District 18 alone, the one I represent, 500 individuals, that's like a drop in the bucket. So we're trying to give a way to find a way that one, people can find out what court system is holding their driver's license hostage, and two, find a way to get to that court system to take care of it.
Yeah, and so I imagine that the event's going to be a safe haven in which,
Yes,
yeah,
that's one of my key things. Safe haven. A lot of people don't come to the event because they think they're going to be arrested. They think something's going to happen. But no, all my events, I talk to the police chiefs. I talk to who are the individual I can to say, hey, this is going to be a safe haven.
yeah. So are you inviting like you had discussed lobbyists from the insurance agencies? Are you inviting these individuals to come and see firsthand the people that are being impacted to kind of sway their impact on the issue?
Yeah, I didn't tell you, and I didn't tell the group this. There actually were some lobbyists at the driver's license town hall forum who actually deal with driver's license suspension. They came in and they sat and they listened. And so yes, they're the ones who are very, not just the lobbyists but the insurance companies as well, and the judges, and also some of these attorneys. They need to know this is an issue that impacts not only the community, but probably someone in their family. Think about it. When you're talking about driverless, it could be a small infraction that's missing court. If you miss a court date, you go to another system, and this system, I was on a panel with someone, and he talked about how he learned how to navigate the streets of Ohio
Right.
because of his driver license suspension, because he got into one area, then he got into another area, and he just learned how to navigate the system. Think about it, it's a public safety issue as
Mm-hmm.
well. When you have someone who's always looking over their shoulder, making sure the police are not there, then you cause an accident, you don't have insurance. How many lives are we saving by helping address the issue of driver's license suspension?
Yeah, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on Senate Bill 37,
Yes.
just the progress that's been made and what needs to continue, and I guess what you see the outcome being.
Senate Bill 37 is one of those bills we hope make it out of the House. It has made it out of the Senate over to the House. It's going to be headed to one of our committees. I'm not sure. I'm suspecting Homeland Security is where it's going to land in the House. That's what they deal with all the driver's license issues. But it's one of those bills that was very heavily debated over in the Senate. There were some things added, taken out. There were some lobbyists on the insurance agencies who got some things taken out. Hopefully, they'll get pushed back in the House. Hopefully, some amendments are coming forth to put some of those things back in, because we need to address it as a whole issue. Um, I think right now where it is if we're going to do something, because it's very positive, let's do it. Let's do what we can, when we got the momentum. But there's also some pushback to say, hey, there need to be some things added, such as judgment and financial suspensions need to be addressed. Also, the issue of missing a court date. It could be as far as you have a sick baby. It could be as far as you're going to a doctor's appointment. You may have had a test at your school that you just need to get to. You had to miss that appointment. And here your driver's license are suspended. So how to address those things? So Senate Bill 37 is one of those bills that address some of those issues. Not all of it. It's not a full comprehensive bill. When it's introduced, it was a full comprehensive bill, but lobbyists got to it and some public interest got to it, so it got scaled down. But it is still one of those bills that hopefully makes it out of the House.
Yeah, have you been having discussions with your colleagues about the importance of the bill?
Even before Senate Bill 37, we had discussions about Senate Bill 37. We were going to introduce something on our end, myself, but we don't want to cumbersome that's one of the things in the House. You don't want to have two competing bills going at each other. So, because one make it, one doesn't, one does, and they have a lot. So we kind of held off on ours. So this has been an issue I've talked about long before SB 37. Once I learned SB 37 came along, I kind of pulled back. I've been talking to the chairman of that committee, hope that is going into prior to SB 37 about driver's license issue. I speak to my colleagues all the time about it, because even though District 18 has a high number, trust me, there are probably so many unreported in those rural
Yeah.
areas.
So, through these discussions, could you share like how why some of your colleagues are a little apprehensive in regards to this issue?
Yeah, I don't think they see it as an issue that is a rural issue or a
Mm-hmm.
public safety issue. And that's why we got to frame it as a public safety issue as well. It's something that is an issue that happens everywhere. A lot of people will say to me, oh, they did, you hear this even when they talk about crime. Oh, they did the crime, let them do the time. Oh, they should have been doing this. They shouldn't have been speeding. They shouldn't have been doing this. But sometimes it's not even that. It could be just something as simple as you just made a wrong turn and you got this fine, and you, like I said, had to drive. You completely forget. People forget to go to their appointment. Or as I talked about with Charlie Orman, changing just your address on your driver's license code, because the notice got sent to this address, but you've moved and you did not,
Mm-hmm.
forward your address. So it's simple things like that. We got to make sure it's relatable to the other representatives, related to those who are going to be who's going to be taking the vote. So if SB 37 does make it to the Florida House, I will be making a speech for its passage. I will be going to the committee to speak to the committee as well to talk about its passage, because we have to do something about this. So I think the hesitation is more of how do we relate this to all of Ohio and not just an urban, suburban area.
Yeah. So, are you optimistic then?
I'm very optimistic. I'm hoping that it's passed. I hope that it makes it out the House. As you know, we're probably not going to go back to November, so then we have to speed it up and maybe part of our final bill to get out of the House. So hopefully, some of it, if part of it, if not all of it, gets put into law, and we have the governor sign his name, and that'd be a very historical day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate all the work you're doing. The community events are really important, and we're doing everything we can to share that information, especially when more comes to us. So, thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yes. What should we have asked that we didn't?
I think we asked everything. I just want to say thank you to Towards Employment for seeing this as an issue. As we talked about this before, when we talk about employment, when we talk about driver's license, when we talk about getting to those spaces and places, Cleveland and its region, as we think about the outer ring or inner ring suburbs, public transportation is not accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about getting to those jobs, getting to those doctor's appointments, getting to those schools, getting to those daycares, driver's license is very important when it comes to employment. And so when Toward Employment saw this as an issue, I completely see it because you're doing something to help not only the individual, but you're also doing something to help the employers as well. When we think about getting employers there to be very flexible, who may be on call. When we talk about overtime, you may have to go to a factory which is calling for overtime, which will help your food, which help your holiday, money. This is something that we're talking about when it comes to driver's license. So I'm so happy that not only Towards Employment, but the Marshall Project, Building Freedom Ohio, Channel 5, Neighborhood Connections all saw this as an issue that we needed to jump on board and maybe advance forward. So I thank you all for the work that you're doing. With my office, this is I always tell people this is not an I thing, this is a we thing. This is our event. This is something that we put on. Anything I can do to help advance it, you have me.
Okay, I do have one more
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
So, for the people that might watch this, how would you suggest that they can get involved? Like, what actions can an individual take to really push this issue?
You know what? That's a great question. I'm glad you thought you asked that. That's actually one thing I've always tell people: watch the Ohio channel. The Ohio channel is where you see me in action and everything in action. Also, follow my page, Rep Brewer, across all social medias. Follow Towards Employment page. Follow Channel 5 page, the Cleveland Marshall Project page. Follow Building Freedom Ohio page. Follow those pages because we post the information there. We're trying to put together, I believe, a website or some type of link tree where people can literally go and find out how to get their driver's license from being held hostage, as I always say, from these courts and from these mayor's courts as well. So follow me on Rep Brewer, Darnell Brewer on Instagram as well. Reach out to my office, 614-466-1414. And also, not just when it relates to driver's license, but any type of other bill that they may have. I tell people to always be educated. And the last thing I'll say to that is we have to find a way to get people from Cleveland area to Columbus to come down and tell their story, to come down and advocate for what is special to them, what is of concern to them, whether it be driver's license, whether it be gun violence, whether it be some type of other issue. Some of the best bills that we've had have come just from sitting with local representatives who think we know everything, but we find out, wow, there's a block, there's something that needs to be done. And so making sure you reach out to me, telling me what's on your mind, telling the other representatives on my mind, and finding out how you can make a difference. But across all those social medias is where we can get that information.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.